Have you ever noticed how sustainability and economic growth are talked about as if they are opposites of each other? One says save the planet, the other says grow the economy. But what happens when saving the planet means slowing the economy, or chasing economic growth means destroying the only planet that we are dependent on? It almost feels like a tug of war, right? On one side, there is industries, jobs, and progress. And on the other side, there is climate goals, green policies, and limited resources. But here's the real question. Are sustainability and economic growth truly enemies, or can they actually be partners building the same future together? Let's break it down, because understanding how this balance works is the key to how every ESG professional, policy maker, and business leader shapes the next decade. So watch the full video till the end to know the interesting link between sustainability and economic growth and how they can go hand in hand together. Hi guys, welcome back to genSustainable, and today's video is going to be another interesting debate between sustainability and economic growth. So now, before we pick sides, let's understand why this debate even began in the first place. Now, sustainability and economic growth, both of them come from a very different schools of thought, and for a very long time they didn't even speak the same language. Now, economic growth basically means increasing the value of anything that the country produces, which simply is more jobs, more goods, more services, and more returns on your investment. For decades, GDP has been the gold standard to measure success. If the GDP is going up, which means people are earning more money, they have more disposable income, they are paying more taxes, and the government has more money to invest in development. On the other hand, sustainability asks a very different question. It doesn't ask how much have we grown, rather it asks how have we grown. Sustainability is about meeting the needs of today without compromising the future generations to meet their own demands. So in short, sustainability is not anti-development, it's just anti-damage. And this ultimate debate began when we realized that the century-long industrialization, which brought so many job opportunities, economic development, and food on the table of many families, is actually heating the planet. It's causing deforestation, increasing GHG emissions, which is eventually leading to climate change. And think about it. The same economic development which gave us jobs, which gave us a good standard of living, which gave us easy and accessible goods and services, also filled our air with pollution and smog. And then people started really questioning, is this progress even sustainable? And then the debate just kept continuing, where on one hand people say that we need to keep the economy growing, we need to remove billions of people out of poverty, while on the other hand people started saying that this growth means nothing if it is destroying the planet, if it is affecting our health and well-being. And this clash between progress and perseverance still defines most global conversations today, from energy policy to climate negotiations. But let's be fair. Economic development is not always about greed, and sustainability is not always about utopia and idealism. Both of them have a valid point. So let's look at each side closely, starting with the case for growth. So first, let's start with the argument for economic growth, because it's not hard why countries chase it relentlessly for over past so many decades and centuries. Now, growth, after all, has been the favorite scale to measure development, and that is obviously because growth gives us more salary, it gives us more income, it removes millions of people out of poverty, and it gives an access to a good standard of living to everyone. And especially in developing economies and countries, growth brings hope where people are still trying to survive and trying to make ends meet. And when environmentalists say that, slow down growth so that we can protect the planet, it naturally comes out as, you are a privileged person, so you have all the comforts and luxuries in life, and now you're saying to stop growth, which can bring millions of people outside poverty who are still suffering, without actually understanding the true point of growth, which comes from unsustainable development. Take India, for example. We are trying to balance two huge priorities at the same time. We want to improve standard of living for 1.4 billion people while also meeting ambitious climate targets. We need more factories and industries to provide more jobs, and easy access to resources and services, but at the same time, we are also struggling with clean air. We want to build more houses and roads, obviously, to house so many people and also to have accessibility to every nook and corner of the country. But at the same time, we still need to preserve our forest and water resources. And it's never a simple choice between either or. And that's why many economists argue that growth is actually not the enemy of sustainability. It is rather a vehicle that can drive sustainability. Now, just imagine if we do not have economic growth, from where will we bring money to bring the energy transition, to invest in low emission fuels, or to even research on green technology? And who will pay for the green transition and climate measures when we are not generating any income in the first place? Think about solar farms, electric mobility, or waste recycling systems. They all require capital, innovation, and skilled jobs. And all of this comes from economic growth. In fact, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 8 is decent work and economic growth, because growth, when done right, paves the pathway to reduce inequality and improve quality of life. So yes, growth removes millions of people outside poverty. It gives us job, it gives us stable lifestyle, it gives us access to education and healthcare. But here's the catch: growth that's not sustainable eventually hits a wall. And that's what the entire sustainability perspective warns us about. So now let's discuss the other side of the coin, which is sustainability. Now, while growth sounds great on paper, our planet has been silently sending us warning signals for some time now. And the truth is, for most of the modern history, our economic model has been dependent on extraction. You extract more resources, you process more of it to produce more goods, and all of this is done basis the assumption that earth has endless amount of resources, while silently the earth's limited resources are developing each day, may it be minerals, metals, clean air, water, land, or forest. And we have now started facing the consequences of decades of unchecked growth, from climate change to reduced air quality, water pollution, land and soil pollution, climate change, increased disasters, shrinking oceans, heat waves, sea level rise. All of it is here. Think of it as a business who never had any balance sheet. You keep hiring more people, you keep producing more goods, but you have no track of the expenses you're doing. And sooner or later, your business just collapses because you never took an account of the losses that occurred. And that's exactly what's happening to our planet right now. We have been extracting resources over decades and centuries now without actually looking at the balance sheet of resources available with us. According to global studies, we have been consuming resources equivalent to 1.7 times Earth's worth of resources, which means we are consuming as if we have another backup planet to provide us with resources. But spoiler alert, we do not have any other backup planet. This is why sustainability isn't about stopping growth. It's just about redefining it. It says that growth should improve lives and not just increase numbers. Growth should create jobs without destroying the ecosystem. Growth should uplift communities without polluting the rivers. And honestly, a lot of young professionals today are looking at growth from a different perspective. Many young millennials, Gen Zs, are opting for products and services which are sustainable and not damaging the planet. We are demanding for workspace which are equitable and sustainable. So change, although is slow, is coming on its way through this young generation. Because what's the point of a high GDP if we do not have clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, and nutritious food for our body? And that's exactly where ideas like green growth or donut economies come into picture, where we try to make both sides work together. So hey, economic growth isn't the villain, nor sustainability is the dreamer. We need to find a middle path to balance both. So let's understand the concept of green growth. Now, green growth says that we can continue growing our economies, but in ways that are environmentally responsible and socially inclusive. It's not about stopping growth, but it's about decoupling growth from pollution, waste, and carbon emissions. Think of it as this way, that for many centuries, economic growth and carbon emissions went hand in hand. But today, you can see many countries are following the path of sustainability sustainability, where they are also developing economically, at the same time also preserving the ecosystem and reducing their emissions. And how is that exactly done? With the help of renewable energy, sustainable technology, and investment on research and development on sustainability linked concepts like waste management, pollution reduction, and low emission equipments. And even in India, when we see a rise in renewable energy sector, we see growing cleanup drives for our rivers, we see young generation switching from fuel based vehicles to EVs, we see a glimpse of green growth coming our way. And don't get me wrong, green growth is not just about switching from fossil fuels to renewables, but it's about how we measure our success. So while we chase numbers, we also keep accountability of our emissions, our pollution, and our ecosystem. And similar to green growth, we have another concept called donut economy, which was proposed by economist Kate Rover. And yes, it's literally called donut because of its shape. Now imagine a donut. So the inner circle is all about the social foundation, things which every human needs like air, water, food, etc. While the outer donut is the capacity or the resource limit that our planet has, like climate, biodiversity, air, and water. So the goal is to stay safe in the space between the two so that everyone has access to enough resources, but at the same time, we are not over exploiting the resources which are available on Earth. So it's a new way of thinking about growth as not bigger or faster, but smarter, more accessible, and all well within limits. So this way, we are not rejecting growth, but we are redefining how growth is measured. But hey, I know you must be thinking by now that all of this sounds good on paper, but it's obviously easier said than done. Because hey, while green growth and donut economies sound very fancy and utopian, but how do we exactly bring them to life? Because obviously there are several real setbacks which the world is facing. And the first one is measurement problem. Now our entire economic system depends on GDP, which measures the value of goods and services. But GDP does not take into account health, social well-being, or even happiness index. So even if a country plants more trees or reduces waste, it doesn't show up on GDP. But if there is flood and the country spends billions on rebuilding infrastructure, it does show in the GDP. So this is the paradox. GDP prefers reaction over prevention. The second problem is cost of transition. Now, all of these sustainable technology, renewable systems, all of this requires huge amount of investment, and not all countries can afford to do so, especially low and middle income developing countries. So for developing countries who are still fighting with poverty, it's a huge dilemma to choose between low carbon technology or to use cheaper alternatives that can rather give access to food and other necessities to millions of people still suffering from poverty. Then there are policy and political challenges. Now, sustainability really requires a long term thinking, but unfortunately, the global politics revolves around short term thinking around election. And green policies may not necessarily show quick results and hence often lose priority. It takes real courage for leaders to invest in change they may not even get credit for in their tenure. And last but not the least, we also need social adjustment. Now, if we need to transition to green economy, a lot of industries, especially fossil fuel based like coal, petrol, diesel, will have to decline. And the people who are employed in this sector would have to be reskilled or re-educated to get job opportunities in different places. Otherwise, sustainability will feel like an exclusion movement and not an inclusive one. So yes, the middle part does exist, but it's obviously the toughest one to walk on. And after hearing both the sides, I'm sure you must now have a better clarity on why the debate even exists. Because to have economic growth along with sustainability is so complex in itself. But if you ask my idea about it, I feel both of them are not rivals, but just partners who can help us lead a better life with access to quality resources, but at the same time also access to clean ecosystem in the long term. So as young professionals who might be just starting out their career in ESG and sustainability, you are definitely going to face a lot of clients asking you this question or making you debate on this topic of economic growth versus sustainability. And at such times, you need to be very clear of what the objective of both of it is and how you can actually bring both of them to life together, hand in hand, and understand both of these concepts of green growth and donut economy while putting forward your debate. So if you found this video helpful and interesting, do hit the like and the subscribe button. Do let me know in the comments below what are some other topics that you would like me to cover. Until we come back with another video on genSustainable, stay impactful, stay genSustainable. Bye bye.